Welcome everyone. Happy Tuesday. I'm the Grace Strega and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first two cards in our 5-card spread? First two cards we are starting our day off with today are, they're already better than yesterday. Everybody relax. Everybody relax. They're better than yesterday. Yesterday we were having a bit of a rough card day. I'm just going to tell you, it was a lot of energetic unpacking, but better out than in. It's Scorpio season. We're going to expect this kind of work. Progress, moving forward. We've got here our Chariot card and it's upright, in combination with our Fool card and its reversal. Slow and steady, winning the race here. We've got a lot of this energy here. We spoke a lot about this yesterday. Moving with intentionality, allowing that intention to guide oneself forward. It was difficult yesterday. I'm just going to talk about it. We're going to unpack it because, boy, where were those cards yesterday? I'm just going to tell you right now, we had the Lover's card in its reversal. We had the Star card in its reversal. We had the Empress card in its reversal. We had the King of Swords in its reversal. We had the King of Cups in its reversal. We had the World card in its reversal. We had the Queen of Cups in its reversal. There were a lot of reversals. Thank you. But what did we end that reading upon yesterday? We ended it with the Three of Swords and its reversal. All of that energy, right? Navigating all of that sense of vulnerability, confronting one's own fears, facing them forward, not allowing oneself to be affected by the energy around you, but moving with energetic purpose. What happens in that moment? You become your own flashlight, right? And so for a lot of the energy navigating yesterday, it may have felt like that volatility around you. What happens when you're moving with intentionality? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's happening around you. Neither wind, no storm, nor dark of night. When you're moving with intentionality, you move with intentionality and purpose because you know the direction that you're moving towards. So we see even now that sense of purpose guiding a lot of the energetic movement yesterday. It was difficult. And there may have been a lot of unpacking. There may have been a lot of authenticity in relationality to what one feels is integral versus what one feels is adaptable. That was a lot of the repetition that we saw on Sunday's reading with the combination, you'll recall, of the Ace of Pentacles in combination with our Ace of Swords in its reversal. So that sense of purpose, allowing oneself to guide forward. These are cards right now of moving forward from a place of wisdom, right? That sense or that space. And what's interesting about that is, again, a lot of that intentionality, almost moving forward to a certain extent, that sense of understanding and moving and continuing forward in that determination point. This is a lot of the energy that is giving one another support along the way. This is having a different impact on the energetic frequencies, masculine and feminine, deep within divine union right now. This is the energetic support that you give one another as you proceed forward from this moment. It's not easy, right? It requires a lot of that. And we even talked about this yesterday, that beautiful ability when you're in an energetic connection, where you're prioritizing the energetic connection, moving out of the space of the self, moving out of one's own way. We saw that even yesterday, a lot of the energy that was in counterpart connection was feeling deficit. Do you amplify an energetic feeling of deficit when you're in partnership? Do you provocate upon it? No. This was energy that was reaching inside of themselves and pulling parts of themselves forward that they didn't even feel that they had within them. Because when we're moving that act of love, that consideration point, it builds us into a vibration of being able to find parts of ourselves that we didn't even know were there. So we see even now that stability, that the energy within divine union is creating for one another, they're generating it. It almost feels like they're generating it from nothing. Because that sense of, again, finding that stability within yourself, because that stability is a gift that you give the energetic counterpart. We see even there that is like the beauty of love to a certain extent. And that sense or that space of saying to one another, come what may, moving forward on that path of determination. We see even now a lot of that energy feeling a little bit more of that stabilization today, right? Now, masculine and feminine coming into divine union. A lot of this work that we're seeing right now, facilitating, recognizing. I see even now, yesterday may have been a very heavy day for a lot of the energy coming into divine union. There may have been a lot of conversation, and it may have been triggering. We saw there was a lot. We had that five of Pentacles rising up. A lot of triggering conversations. And again, that like yesterday, for a lot of the energy coming into divine union, I'm seeing again, it was breakthrough or breakdown type of energy. It was a lot of that sense or space of experiencing something and either feeling the sensation of the volatility that may have been created in a past experience, and then feeling that sense of being able to navigate it in a way that you haven't before, right? Or we're seeing even there that there may have been something that occurred yesterday for some energetic connections which identified and recognized the difference between what feels like it is adaptable, what feels like it is changeable, versus what feels like it's energetically integral, right? That sense or that space of identifying and recognizing what one can change versus what is deep within the self. That's hard work. And so we see even now, I have to stress, there may have been some energy that fell into separation yesterday. But that sense of separation, I see that there's a lot of healing that's occurring amidst it, because that observational point in understanding the difference in moving in different directions, wanting different things, it may feel frustrating, right? It may feel upsetting, but it also feels affirming, because this is not energy that feels that sense of wanting to pull someone onto their own path work. This is that energy that recognizes and identifies that the way we move into healthy partnership is feeling that sense of mutually wanting to move in the same direction, right? So that's beautiful here, because we see even now there may be some energy that experienced something yesterday that would have led to a previous breakdown. And that was the implementation of the new tools that are being applied that almost show the fact of like proof of concept, if you will, in something not necessarily moving in the direction it typically would. Or there was an observation that was potentially occurring yesterday in relationality to what feels one has the ability to change versus what feels like it is not changeable, right? So we see even there a lot of that space. But the most important thing that we're seeing in that context is that sense of identification and understanding. This is a lot of energy that doesn't feel like they're moving forward from a state of uncertainty. There's a lot of that sense of, again, trusting the process. Now, speaking towards that, moving to the energy and separation right now, I just see that a lot of that energy and separation may have been, and this is I got to stress this right now, for the energy and separation, this is some of the best, this is some of the best energy that we're seeing right now. Why are we seeing that right now? Because I see that a lot of this energy and separation is feeling the validation that they're moving in the right direction. And something about that perception, that ability of looking back, recognizing and understanding something. I'm just seeing even now, there's that space. I want to say there's a lot of energy that is coming into new partnerships or new potentiality that's allowing for a feeling of breakthrough, because there's that sense of alignment and recognition of experiencing something and getting closure in the process of unpacking it with another, that's allowing for a bit of that expansiveness. It's difficult, but it's also reaffirming. Center card for today's spread is, we have here, oh, I love it. We've got here our 6 of Wands in its upright. Man, this Scorpio energy, it is like a roller coaster right now. I'm telling you, it is like a roller coaster. Yesterday, a lot of that dipping. Now we're feeling a lot of that energetic elevation. So even here, that sense of stability, working towards that sense of stability. There's a lot of this energy right now in separation that is feeling that's feeling that breakthrough point in recognition to some of the new energetic connections that they're making at this time in separation, that feels like it is validation of the path work. And I want to say the path work of like potentially over like the last 6 months or so. I just see even now a lot of that feeling of energetic reassurance. And it's vital, it's revitalizing. And at the same time, it feels a lot like that sense or that space. And I want to stress this, for a lot of the energy in separation, that feeling of moving with a sense of purpose, like working towards one's own manifestation goals. And I see even now a lot of that energy in separation, feeling, they're saying like the easement point, right? We talked about this. The easement point, how easy it can be moving in the direction of someone that wants to move in the same direction with you. And if this was, and I told you, a lot of what we're seeing that's happening right now, especially in this month of this Scorpio season, they're saying it's strength recall. It's strength recall. Why? Because if this is the energy that was feeling that sense of doubting their own strength, because everything they tried to do in a past connection felt like they could not move it in the direction that they desired it to be, that energy coming through that eclipse cycle, simply letting go of something, if it felt like it was not, if it felt like that was too energetically difficult, we see now that a lot of that energy is reaffirming their own sense of strength, potentially moving into energetic connections where they see that easement. They feel that easement in relationality to moving, someone that's moving in the same direction as you. And it's, and a lot of that feels reaffirming to the energy in separation, because it validates the understanding of what is within one's own power, right? And it's difficult here. I can see it even now. Like, again, whenever we see a little bit of this Fool energy in its reversal, it can always feel bittersweet, because that sense of bittersweetness, that is the recognition point between what one feels like one can change within the self versus the energetic lessons of the past. But a lot of that sense of validation that's rising through within that. Now, for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, I even see yesterday, there was definitely, I see either one of two different modalities that was occurring yesterday for energy coming into divine union. Okay, and we're going to talk about them because it's important, because I definitely saw a little bit of a split there. For some of the energy, navigating something that would have previously led to a separation moment, right? Experiencing something with the same level of intensity, potentially even similar to what we saw during the eclipse cycle, right? That same level or degree of intensity. But then immediately being able to put into practice some of those tools that one was working on within the self to work through a better energetic outcome. We see even there, for a lot of that energy, that was that moment that validated one's own path work in relationality to how far one has come. And potentially even observing at the time and saying, a few weeks ago, this would have moved in a very different direction. But that sense of, again, building upon strength, building upon getting stronger at doing something that's difficult, it feels very validating. I see a lot of energy moving deeper into divine union as a result of it. But if these are modalities or circumstances or experiences wherein that same level or degree of difficulty emerged, the same kind of energy we saw during the eclipse cycle, and these were circumstances or situations wherein, again, the difference between what feels like is adaptable was encountered in relationality to what feels like it's integral. I see even now that some of that energy may have been moved into separation yesterday, with the identification of not wanting to move someone out of the perspective of who they are internally, right? And that recognition point, to a certain extent, even here, there's a little bit of that affirmation, because this is, I see energy that is separating, but in a way that isn't confusing, There seems like there's a lot of clarity there. There seems like there's almost a lot of immediate closure, because it is the recognition and the affirmation of the difference between, again, we talked about strength, feeling that sense of wanting to move in the same direction versus feeling that perpetual push and pull, or that tug that sometimes feels very impactful, right? It can feel very overpowering, but the reason it feels overpowering is potentially because the energy is trying to pull each other in different directions, right? While for a lot of this energy deep within divine union right now, a lot of this energy deep within divine union, we're just seeing and recognizing that this is a lot of the energy that just feels like yesterday. It feels like yesterday everything was like falling apart at the seams. But again, when things are feeling like they're falling apart at the seams, what do? Do you come undone? No, you grab a needle and a thread. You know? When things are coming apart at the seams, what do? Do you throw everything over your shoulder and say, forget it? Or do you grab a needle and thread? Do you sit down and do what one needs to do? And so we see that a lot of that energy just continuing to prioritize, continuing to keep one's focus and determination on what is necessary. We see that a lot of that energy feeling that sense of being able to pull things out of themselves that they didn't even know were there because they weren't even feeling them, because that's the power of love. The power of love allows us to find things within us that we did not know were possible, because we don't look towards the other from a space of need. We look with a sense of compassion to those we care about and say, what can I give forth to them that they need at this moment? So a lot of that energetic compassion I see creates that bit of balance here. And it's hard and it's difficult. But today is feeling like a little bit more of that energetic easement. Continuing to get clarification, next two cards in our 5-card spread before we move towards clarification. I know you want to come out, so come out. Thank you. We've got here our Hierophant in its reversal in combination with our Star card in its reversal. Geez Louise, this Star card will not stay in the deck right now. It just won't stay in the deck. And it's coming up in its reversal over and over. We got it yesterday in the same position. I mean, virtually in the same position. Yesterday, we had the Star card in its reversal where the Fool card is in its reversal here. So we see even now, like a lot of that Star card in its reversal to a certain extent has to do, and I want to stress this, with that sense, and this is good. It's not necessarily a bad thing to see the Star card in its reversal right now, because let's unpack it. Because this is a lot of this is a lot of that scorpionic journey that we're seeing right now in relationality to taking an unconventional approach to things. Okay? This has been coming up like hotcakes throughout this entire Scorpio season. When you build into a sense of purpose, you're willing to take unconventional approaches, right? You're willing to do things in different ways. Why? Because when you're working with a sense of purpose, you don't take things personally. Because that sense of purpose, it was what drives you forward to a certain extent and allows that ability of being able to take unconventional approaches. So for a lot of the energy deep within divine union, we see that a lot of that work, it feels beneficial because it's the amplification of not just working for the sense or the sake of the self, but being very attentive to the energetic needs of those around them. It is having a different impact on masculine and feminine energy right now. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Now, for a lot of this energy that we're seeing right now, for masculine energy, there's a lot of this sense, I want to say, of trusting the process to a certain extent. I'm just seeing this here. Bearing in mind, again, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. A lot of this work of the masculine right now is moving forward with a sense of, I want to say, and this is more of that overprotectiveness. There's still a lot of this overprotectiveness that we're seeing here that's potentially rising up around the masculine. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. For a lot of the masculine energy in this modality right now, I see that ability of being energetically taking unconventional approaches has to do in relationality towards putting a lot of care around the feminine to a certain extent. I just keep seeing this, that a lot of this masculine energy right now is feeling, I want to say, energetically protective in relationality to the vulnerability that the feminine often has to navigate. Why do we see this right now? Because again, a lot of the things that we spoke about over the last few days was that renewed sense of empathy, if you will. The masculine coming into that space of being energetically empathetic towards the feminine. And that state or space of understanding that, we see even there, that is allowing the masculine to feel like they're going through those points of breakthrough, because that sense of building forward in such an extent is allowing that adaptability point. Now for feminine, this may be feeling more energetically frustrating, right? This may be feeling more energetically frustrating today, because for a lot of the feminine energy right now, I just keep seeing that something about that work, it's building forth into that space of anxiety. It's working through in such a way that you're navigating those spaces of potentially feeling a lot of that frustration, right? A lot of that uncertainty. But both of these energies right now, deep within divine union, building forth and supporting one another along the way, right? What is feminine giving masculine at this time? This is feminine saying to masculine, it is okay to be vulnerable, right? Pulling out the thing that they don't feel within the self, giving it to masculine, right? This is the feminine going, I don't feel like it's okay to be vulnerable, but it's okay for you to be vulnerable right now, right? Masculine saying to feminine, it's okay for you to take unorthodox approaches. This is masculine going, I'm not taking those energetic risks right now, but you should take those energetic risks, because we see even now that that's the gift that these are giving, the counterparts are giving one another, right? I told you, pulling something out that you yourself don't feel, but that you know that the other energetically needs. Now for masculine and feminine energy that's coming into divine union right now, this is what I mentioned about, and I did see a split that was occurring yesterday for the energy coming into divine union. And that split energetically that we were seeing was either the recognition point and feeling the validation of putting into practice what those changes are, coming into that space of adaptability, coming into that space of making those accommodations and making those changes and doing that work on the self, feeling the intensity that may have been very similar to what we identified that was occurring during the eclipse cycle. Remember, because a lot of that energy experienced that same make or break energy during the eclipse process that we experienced just about a month ago. But feeling that breakthrough, having those tools coming forward and being able to put them into practice. I see a lot of that feeling like energetic elevation. Whereas again, some of that energy yesterday, if that was a modality where it felt like it was a repetition of an energetic cycle, if it felt like it was just the same occurring again, feeling like that limitation between what one feels that one could change versus what is integral to the self, I see that maybe some energy went into separation at that moment. But the observation and the understanding about the feeling of desiring different things or wanting to move in different directions, this is what we see is creating a lot of healing. Like I almost see like even as that separation occurs, it feels restorative because the energy feels like it is the right thing to do. Maybe not the easy thing, but the right thing to do. While for a lot of this energy right now in separation, that validation point that I'm seeing that's occurring in separation is a lot of that energy articulating upon the experiences that may have led them to be in separation, feeling that validation point, feeling that sense of understanding via the new energetic counterparts. And even here, there's a lot of that energy that may be saying to one another, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here, right? Because this is an energy that's like, yay, I'm in separation. There's a lot of this energy that's identifying one another because they're speaking towards their distaste of being in energetic separation. Now, that what we're effectively seeing here, this is the energy that says, I'm not trying to rush that process. I'm waiting for the energy that I know is in alignment with me. But a lot of that energy, feeling that validation of someone that's in alignment in the same way. Do you see these counterparts right now? working towards that sense, taking things energetically slow on the side of the masculine, saying to feminine, I recognize that trust is earned. It's not something that is demanded. Feminine looking towards masculine, feeling that validation, potentially even again, coming into that state of apologizing. I see a lot of the feminine right now, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, almost being apologetic about their emotions yesterday. We identified that in separation. If someone was saying to you, why are you apologizing for having emotions? A lot of this was triggering because it's the observation of what you're healing from as you move forward into new energetic connections. Continuing to get clarification here between our Chariot card and its upright in combination with our Fool card in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now. I love it. We've got here our 10 of Swords in its upright, rebirth energy, new energetic cycles starting, having a lot of this validation. Yesterday may have been a real moment of energetic cleansing. Better out than in. It's hard, right? When you create closure, sometimes there's a lot of ferocity that arises up in those modalities. It's not easy, right? That ability of building into a sense of closure. Where is a lot of this energy and separation building closure from? New beginnings. New beginnings create closure in beautiful ways. So a lot of this energy is building forward right now, having those slow starts. But as they do so, closure is a very quiet door. So we see even now, like that's energy that even recognizes it building forth with someone and starting to build into that space of trust. They're building into a sense of the new beginning that's creating closure on the past, masculine and feminine, coming into divine union right now. This, I gotta say this. And I know it's really frustrating because I see that there was a split yesterday that occurred for the energy coming into divine union. Either a breakthrough or a breakdown yesterday. Either a breakthrough or a breakdown yesterday. We've already got the next card flying out. We're going to talk about it because it's actually connected to this one. Either a breakthrough or a breakdown. Navigating negativity. Navigating something triggering. Potentially even something that was similar to, what did I say? The eclipse. See, no sun, the eclipse. Similar to the energy that we experienced during the eclipse about a month ago, right? That ability of seeing that, having that moment of being like, wow, that would have gone a lot worse. I remember when we went through something similar to that during the eclipse, and wow, we've been doing a lot of work because it wasn't easy, but it was getting better. Recognizing, giving each other almost like a salute in relationality to doing something in a way and being like, okay, the work that we've been doing has been paying off because it didn't lead to the same breakdown that we experienced prior to this. Like a lot of that energy is feeling that affirmation and confidence today and being able to come into a space of feeling that peace was energetically restored and something that would have created like a lot of volatility in the past. For some energy now, yesterday may have been a day of separation. Yesterday may have been a day of a breaking point in the recognition of someone articulating and saying the difference between what one feels that one can change versus what one is integrally embodying, right? And so I see even now a lot of that energy potentially making that determination and moving different ways. The gift that I'm seeing here is this is the energy that's saying it's difficult, but the identification of feeling like it's the right thing to do. While for masculine and feminine energy, deep within divine union, this is a lot of that energy. Doesn't matter what the weather is, right? Doesn't matter what the weather is when you're moving with a sense of energetic purpose. You got to make your own light sometimes. So yesterday was one of those days where it's like, some days it's easier, some days it's harder. That ability of working through that space of consistency. What do you need? That was the energy of yesterday. What do you need? What can I give you? How can I help? Right? That ability of doing so and being energetically mindful in that way, we see even there, that's that point of restoration. But even in that modality of restoration, we see a lot of that energetic healing, right? Because even in that space, navigating forward, having a lot of those energetic difficulties and then being supportive along the way, this is the energy that says, I find things within myself because I don't look towards counterpart and say to this counterpart, this is what I need. That's that moment that you pull out what's out within the self, because that's that modality of giving forward in such a way you go, I didn't even know I had that in me. Here you go. Here it is. Here it is. I didn't even know I needed to find that. There it is. Here you go. You can have it. Right? Because there's that, and it was different because this is what we talk about with counterpart energy. The gift of being with counterpart connection is even when you're moving in a space of deficit, that ability of knowing and recognizing one another, you're able to pull forth towards a counterpart what you need at that moment, because you recognize and understand intuitively that sensor space of almost adapting into what you know the counterpart needs to be able to find energetic balance. Continuing to get clarification here between our Fool card in its reversal in combination with our Six of Wands in its upright. One card to clarify, please. Clarification. Here it is again. We've got a lot of those same cards that we saw yesterday, right? A lot of those same cards that we saw yesterday. We've got here our Five of Pentacles in its upright. Masculine and feminine, navigating these abandonment wounds, feeling those senses of, bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, working through the energetic frustration, working through the anxiety, right? What happens when you're navigating through points of energetic anxiety, but you're moving with a sense of purpose? Doesn't really matter, does it? It doesn't really matter, does it? You're going to go forward regardless, because a lot of that energy, remembering, bravery is not what you do in confidence. Bravery is what you do when you're terrified. Bravery is what you do in those moments when anxiety rears its head. Bravery is not defined in what you do and that you feel confident upon doing. Bravery is when you navigate the space of vulnerability and you put on your headlamp and you go there anyway, right? So we see even now for a lot of that energy working through deep within divine union, that space of being able to go within the self and find things that you didn't know were there. That is a lot of the gift that we're seeing that's occurring right now during Scorpio season. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union. A lot of that energy yesterday may have had that moment, right? Being able to navigate what may have felt like an energetic conflict in such a way, but instead of doing what feels like it was easy to do, doing that part, becoming in that, letting that scorpion sting as a sense of defensiveness, doing something painful and hurting inadvertently because you say to someone, I'm sorry I hurt you, I was just trying to protect myself, right? That's what we do when we're not being in a space of being intentional and mindful. Sorry if I just snapped at you. I'm sorry if I just did that. I wasn't intending to do it, right? That's what we have to work on during Scorpio season. Not letting that protectiveness create that sense of accidentally, inadvertently hurting someone in a moment that we ourselves feel vulnerable. For some of that energy, being able to soften that blow, being able to come into that point of saying, I'm not going to let my instinct guide me at this moment. I'm going to let my intentionality speak through my energetic instinct. We see even there that a lot of that energy doing that work felt that validation and was moving into a space of being able to find new ways of navigating energetic conflict, wherein, right, for some of that energy, that ability of doing so, that observation, and this is where we saw a little bit of that split yesterday, potentially seeing something and saying, I don't know if you can energetically help it, or I don't know if you're in that space or place where that's something that you want to let go of. So we see that there may have been some observations of heavy conversations for some of the energy trying to come into divine union yesterday in relationality to the observation of what one feels one desires to change versus what one feels is integral. And so we see even now a lot of that energy maybe moving into, some of that energy moving into separation by saying, I want to move in a pathwork of determination with you. But I don't want you to have to do that in a way that makes you feel like you're abandoning yourself in the process. That brings us to a lot of that energy in separation, where we see that for a lot of that energy in separation right now, this is a lot of the energy that's like, I want to say even now, navigating some moments, triggering moments, having those, what happens? How do we heal an abandonment wound? We heal an abandonment wound in the modality where we suddenly realize something that feels like it's triggering. But we say to ourselves, I'm not going to assume the past is repeating itself. I'm not going to assume the past is repeating itself. I'm going not going to assume the past is going to repeat itself. I'm going to move with intentionality through it. So we see that even yesterday, there may have been some breakthroughs, some energy had in separation as it relates to how to navigate disruptions in energetic connection. And that ability of being able to, again, probe, not assuming, being inquisitive, having a lot of that validation and doing so, creating that space or that place that allows for the exploration of something in a way that being able to articulate upon the abandonment wound feels like it's energetically restorative. Continuing to get clarification on this 5 and the God, and a lot of that unpacking, I see a lot of that energy recalling their strength by articulating upon something from the past, and someone saying, sounds to me like you're very strong. Like someone almost articulating and saying something, expressing something. Almost I see a lot of energy being corrected in conversations and separation, being able to say something and be like, yeah, I completely messed that up. There was nothing I could do. I tried to fix something and nothing I could do to fix it. And someone saying, it doesn't sound to me like you did anything wrong. It sounds to me like you were trying to be very energetically strong in the face of someone else that was not able to, right? So we see even there, like a lot of that clarification, someone looking and articulating upon an energetic weakness and a new potential counterpart saying, that sounds like your greatest strength, right? So we see even there a lot of those new energetic connections coming through with the recall of, again, identifying the weakness that is the strength. Continuing to get clarification between our 6 of Wands in its upright in combination with our Hierophant in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Justice card in its reversal. You know, here's the thing about it. Scorpio season, it's triggering. It's triggering. You know why? Very much like Cancer season. We've got a lot of hypersensitivity and weaponization. You know, you got a lot of that. You got a lot of that sensitivity, and you got a little weapon there too. You got a little bit of that weapon. You got to watch it. Don't be poking with that stick. Okay, put it down. All right, you got to behave. Right, everybody's got to behave right now. All right, because especially. And I want to say this right now, that sensitivity, I see a lot of the energy in separation being energetically self-corrective. And there may have even been something yesterday that happened for some energy in separation that was triggering because it reminded them. It reminded you of something. It reminded you of something that felt like it was super imbalanced. Whoa, like one of those kind of things, like one of those kind of things. Like, oh no. But again, not assuming that the past is repeating. Being energetically inquisitive, right? Letting that be a moment of unpacking. Letting that be a moment of asking those energetic questions. What does Scorpio season ask us to do? Does Scorpio season ask us to be reactive? No. Keep that stinger behind you. Let it create that sense of inquisitiveness. Let it be that modality of understanding, because often, you know, again, the Scorpionic journey is often the energetic lesson of learning what happens when you strike first and ask questions later. You don't allow a sense of creating an antidote, right? So that ability of doing so, that ability of being conscientious, that ability of building into a construct of taking different energetic approaches, it requires us to be adaptable. It requires us to be unconventional. And most importantly, and this is why it's connected to the Libra connection, moving from Libra into Scorpio season, just because you have the right to doesn't mean something's energetically right? So that ability of determining and finding one's own sense of balance, a lot of those conversations may be emerging right now within this transformation process, especially in relationality to some of those energetic connections that are forming during this time. And that validation of potentially saying to someone, I can even see now, that ability of unpacking something and saying, I wish I see something here that I failed at and was weak at. And a lot of this energy and separation, almost saying to oneself, it doesn't sound to me like that's a weakness. It sounds to me like something that you were trying to do was energetically impossible, right? Like that's a lot of the energy going, have you considered the fact that what you describe as weak might have been something that was energetically impossible? I almost see like a lot of that energy coming into that space of recognizing and identifying and learning something about one's own tendencies in the process of building into a new energetic connection right now. that is liberating to a certain extent, because it creates that space of understanding the difference between what one can change within the self, integral, versus what is outside the self to accept, right? And that's how the closure is forming. Wow, and the new beginning. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union. This is why I saw that separation point yesterday between the energy that may have experienced something and been like, this often leads us to a breakthrough. Oh my gosh, it didn't. Oh my gosh, we took a different approach. We did the hard thing. We navigated through it and everything didn't fall apart. Well, okay, maybe it fell apart a little bit, but not as bad as it used to. Like, I can see a lot of the energy being like, oh, it fell apart a little bit, but not as bad as it used to. Like, a lot of that energy being like, ah, success. Because that's that space of being like, it just didn't break down as bad as it typically would. That means we're moving in the right direction, right? So that's a lot of the energy being like, okay, good. Versus some of this energy that may have moved into separation with the sense of saying to someone, I don't think this is something either within your capacity to change, or I don't think this is something that you want to change, or someone saying, I don't want to change that. That honesty, the Scorpio journey, that honesty that comes to the surface that allows for a lot of that energetic breakthrough. It's hard. It's difficult. But it allows for that expansion. While for masculine and feminine coming into deep within divine union right now, like a lot of this work that I'm identifying and recognizing, this is the energy that it just, I mean, again, it's when you're moving in the context of creating balance, when your purpose is to create balance, it doesn't matter if you're encountering situations that feel like they're energetically imbalanced, right? Like all it takes is whatever it takes. Like all it takes is whatever it takes, because that is the expression of love to a certain extent. So we almost see there that there's a lot of that feeling of energetic restoration that's occurring there, because there's a lot of that energy that says to one another, it doesn't really matter what's happening around. It doesn't change our energetic purpose, and it can sometimes feel frustrating. I can see the energy deep within divine union expressing their frustration on the days that sometimes it feels like that is much harder than it should be. But this is the energy that operates forward in that way regardless, continuing to get clarification between our Hierophant in its reversal in combination with our star energy in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with... Oh, here she is again in the same position that she was in yesterday. So we've got a lot of these duplication of cards that's happening right now. We've got our Queen of Cups in its reversal, right? A little bit more of this frustration right now. Feminine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. A lot of that emotional appreciation right now. And I got to say, even here, a lot of this energy in relationality to the emotionality of feminine has to even do right now with other feminine energy to a certain extent. I can even see this. This is some like, for energy deep within divine union, having to navigate forward in such a way in recognition of navigating. And I just want to say that sense or that space of emotionality, I just see that there's a lot of different placements that may be occurring right now in relationality to the emotions that one feel. A feminine energy is just in this space where it's like, I can see a lot of the feminine energy deep within divine union almost articulating and saying, it doesn't necessarily matter how the emotions feel right now, because again, moving with a sense of purpose, it feels like when you're moving with a sense of a purpose, when you're really in a rush, you almost feel like being able to articulate one's emotionality about things feels like an energetic like luxury, right? I can see a lot of that energy. Just being like, I don't have time to articulate upon my emotions right now because it feels like a luxury. Like it feels like, oh, to have the ability to articulate upon one's emotions on something. And so for a lot of the feminine energy, I almost see the kind of, being in that space and being appreciative, both in terms of where you are, but also in the space of others around you being in that same modality. there's that sense, I want to say it feels restorational, because this is the energy that says, no, I get it. I completely understand, because this is more of that energy that says not taking another's emotionality personally. And I want to say, even now, if there's circumstances or situations wherein someone is becoming personal because it feels like their emotional needs aren't being met, I even see there like a lot of that energy of the feminine unpacking and working towards something in such a way, which is the articulation, as it were, of being able to recognize, identify, and amplify like what feels like it is energetically restorative, what creates those moments or those modalities of being able to heal. And there's frustration here, right? Because for a lot of the feminine energy deep within divine union, we saw that a lot of that work that's occurring is navigating others' perceptions of the self in relationality to the self, right? Like almost that sense or that need of having to arise to meet others' energetic expectations of the feminine. This is a lot of the feminine almost articulating and communicating the frustration towards masculine, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, about how being able to kind of move into that vector often feels like it moves the feminine energy away from being seen or away from being able to be their most authentic sense of self. Whereas for masculine, again, a lot of that frustration, this is the empathy that we see that the masculine is holding for the feminine in that context. Because that recognition point of the masculine not feeling the weight of having to navigate the emotionality, the emotional burden, if you will, that is often placed on the feminine, the responsibility of others' emotions that are often given to the feminine. This is a lot of the masculine articulating the feeling of energetic frustration and seeing and experiencing feminine being in that modality where not only are they responsible for their own emotions, but they're also supposed to be responsible for carrying the emotional burden of those around them. So we see a lot of that empathy here, because masculine's almost looking at feminine that has that energetic responsibility that they themselves don't ever feel that need of ever having to carry, because it was never even placed upon them in the first place, right? While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union, a lot of this energy coming into divine union right now, I'm just seeing even now, this is that sense of breakthrough, right? And even in that sense of breakthrough, I have to say that if this is energy that was having breakthrough coming into divine union, it's not that it was perfect. I can even see a lot of this energy coming into that space of like articulating towards one another and saying about how they could do something better. But I have to stress, even in that space of self-assessment, that recognition of articulating something and saying something occurred yesterday that I wish I could have done better. Something was happening yesterday that I wish I could have navigated better. This is the energy that's actively engaged and showing one another that ability of navigating situations. They don't come into that space of blame. They don't come into that space of accusation. They come into that space of self-reference and self-remediation, because this is the energy that's being very conscientious of not navigating forward in energetic connections, having those emotional triggers create walls where they're hoping to create intimacy. And so we see even there that something about that unpacking, right? Being able to even unpack something that recently occurred is showing validation for a lot of that energy, because that's the energy that even when they start to feel a disruption, it doesn't mean they have to be perfect during the disruption, but this is energy that's recognizing and prioritizing restoration, right? While for energy coming in separation right now, some of this energy coming into separation, I see a lot of some new energy that's moved back into separation, and a lot of it feels like the validation in relationality to how one's own emotions are being held, right? And so I see even now that for some of the feminine energy, that ability, like I can see that some of that energy in separation, it's frustrating. Because if that's the feminine that's in that modality of feeling like one needs to apologize for the emotions, and I need to stress this isn't the emotions that are sent forward in such a way that they block connection, right? This is not subjecting another to the emotions. but articulating upon the emotions. If the feminine feels like they had to articulate and apologize for having emotions, I can see why so much of this energy and separation feels validated in terms of where they find themselves, especially if they're coming into connection with new masculine energy that's saying, why are you apologizing for articulating that you have emotions, right? A lot of the masculine energy and that sense or that space of the masculine coming towards feminine right now in separation, that ability of moving forward to a certain extent, prioritizing, being able to be clear with the feminine. I see that a lot of the difficulty the masculine's navigating right now is trying to match the feminine energy's own openness as it relates to emotionality. Because I told you, a lot of the masculine working on doing this, it feels like you're taking something that you were always told to keep within and bringing it forward without, and feeling that conscientiousness in doing so. Because again, if this was masculine, where in the past, being able to articulate upon the emotions, someone expressed to you that that was a weakness, this could be a lot of the feminine energy and separation, almost saying to masculine, who told you that expressing your emotions made you weak? Do you see how all this energy is building back into strength and separation right now? That's why some of the easiest energy, I don't say the easiest energy right now, but some of the most supportive is the energy we're finding right now in separation. Continuing right now between the Sun card, 10 of Wands, Swords, and it's upright, in combination with our 5 of Pentacles. It's got to hurt to heal. It's got to hurt to heal. It's got to hurt to heal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Strength card in its reversal. I told you, this is all about vulnerability. And this is about finding strength by re-identifying what strength is. And so for a lot of this energy, this is energy that is taking something in separation that they thought was a weakness, and someone being like, sounds to me like someone can match your strength. I can see a lot of energy right now in separation talking about something that they consider a weakness, and someone saying, who told you that that was a weakness? Who told you that that was a vulnerability? It sounds to me like that's your strength. And someone was getting you into that space of telling you that your strength was an energetic weakness. Because when we're not in places that hold us preciously, the things that we are precious, the things that make us precious, someone will articulate are meaningless, right? Because that is the sense of not being appreciated, right? The valuation of moving in alignment, the gift of alignment, is being seen with your gifts and appreciated for them. This is why we talk about that you can't bake bread in a laundromat. You can't wash clothes in a bakery, because you could be the best baker on the planet. But if you're trying to bake bread in a laundromat, you're going to have everyone around you telling you that what you're doing is wrong. So we see even now that a lot of that energy, that recognition or that understanding that's happening right now in separation with the new energetic connections is creating a lot of closure, because the closure is the understanding of someone identifying a strength that another articulated was a weakness. Continuing to get clarification between, for the energy right now coming into divine union, you're not good at this, right? You're not, but again, this is the energy when you say, I'm not good at this, what you're really saying is I'm doing something and I'm putting a value add on how well I'm doing it. And so for a lot of that energy coming into that space of apology and saying, I'm sorry, I'm not as good at this. There's something I could have done yesterday, like I could have done better. This is the energy that sees the conscientiousness of someone coming into the point of being self-referential, shows the quality and concern of what someone prioritizes. Because when we're moving in a space of intentionality and we feel energetically triggered, we don't make our triggers another person's responsibility, right? And our ability of taking accountability for our triggers is the best amplification of our own sense of healing, because it is the observation and saying, I see them too, right? It doesn't mean that they're ever gone fully. We don't get, I hate to break it to you, we don't get rid of abandonment wounds. They don't go anywhere. But our own ability of knowing our own internal map, identifying where they are and being able to speak towards them, right? When we come into that space of wanting to protect others from them, this is a lot of the energy that's moving in that space of healing, and it affecting even how they navigate conflict. Because when they navigate conflict, they don't create that space of wanting to propel the energetic conflict, but being conscientious in terms of what feels like it helps versus what feels like it harms as it relates to the direction that you're trying to go towards. While for energy deep within divine union right now, a lot of this energy deep within divine union right now, whatever it takes. Like I see a lot of the energy just being like, whatever it takes. And that sense or that space of being in that space, like that is the act of love, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you'll feel confident about it. When you care, it's not about confidence. It's about purpose. That's what love is. You do it anyway. You do it even when you're scared. You do it even when you're not sure. Because when you love, that's what it takes. All it takes is everything. Right? And there's a lot of that energy, and I see even now, and that's why I see even now, again, if someone is in that articulation of trying to burden another with their emotionality, in a space or a place of being energetically demanding upon something, we see even now like a lot of that energy feeling that point of frustration because it's that sense of that understanding in relationality towards how one moves like towards another in terms of looking from that sense. And I just want to say it even now, a lot of that heightened sensitivity right now in relationality to abandonment wounds that effectively occurs at this time. But that sense or space of being able to, again, navigate through sensitivity without allowing oneself to be energetically triggered, but almost letting that intensify one's own sense of purpose. This is a lot of the work that we see that the energy deep within divine union is doing right now. And again, I want to say a lot of that energy has to navigate others' energetic disappointment to a certain extent, right? Because when you're moving with a sense of purpose and someone else energetically around you is disappointed or taking it personally, you have to kind of say to them, like, that's a point of perspective being one of the amplification in terms of what the direction you're trying to go is versus what someone else is seeing from within, right? So we see even now, this could be a lot of that. It could be a lot more still of some of those difficult, difficulties in relationality to, what feels energetically triggering or how one navigates triggers, right? Like there could be a little bit of this unpacking here because again, we got to be really conscientious during Scorpio season as it relates to what feels like it is restorative as opposed to amplifying or reacting from feeling energetically vulnerable, right? Continuing to get clarification between our Five of Pentacles in its upright in combination with our Justice card in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Two cards coming out to clarify. One of them's in their transverse. So we've got here our Seven of Swords in its transverse in combination with our Queen of Swords in its reversal. So more of this energy that we're seeing from yesterday. Masculine and feminine energy. Today is having, it's different today. The energies were in alignment yesterday. They're no longer in energetic alignment. It's a little bit easier right now for masculine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. I want to say that there's a lot of overwhelm today that I'm seeing around feminine, but it feels like emotional overwhelm from a space of release, from a space of relief and release. And a lot of it right now, I can kind of see for the emotions, and this is why we see even, I even see even now for a lot of the feminine energy in that space of navigating emotionality. I feel like a lot of the feminine energy right now is giving anyone like a pass. If there's something here that feels like it's an amplification of emotionality, because a lot of the energy of the feminine is just recognizing the intensity of the energy at this time, right? So even I see sometimes that ability to take balance, sometimes that ability to feel energetically balanced, it just takes everything. Sometimes it just takes everything. So we see even now a lot of that energetic support coming through to other feminine to a certain extent in that amplification of basically saying if feminine seeing other feminine that is in that modality of being a little bit more energetically triggered, I almost see the energy kind of being I get it. I get it. Well, for masculine energy right now, deep within divine union, a lot of that work that I see that is occurring right now has to do with that sense of, I want to say, being energetically adaptable, having that ability of identifying and recognizing, taking different energetic approaches. And I want to say that for a lot of the masculine energy in this modality right now, this also feels like, I just see that there's so much of this energy here moving forward in such a way that it feels protective and restorative towards feminine, because it's that sense of, again, identifying and recognizing and almost looking towards feminine and saying, what do you need at this moment? How can I energetically support and assist you? So we see even now, like, a lot of that energy coming forward in such a way, giving each other what they don't feel like they actually have within, but then immediately coming into restoration in the process, because these are the energies that rise up for one another in ways that they wouldn't even imagine they could find within the self. While for masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, this is a lot of the energy coming into divine union. I mean this in a nice way. I didn't know you had it in you, but also almost saying, I didn't know we had it within us. Why do we say that? Because we see that for a lot of that energy coming into divine union, that ability of doing something in a way that you haven't before, right? Going through something, feeling the anxiety of a trigger, but then being able to pull something out from within the self that you've been working on, something that you've been trying, you've been putting that effort in changing and seeing the result. There's a lot of that energy that feels that release and relief, because even if they're feeling like they've got notes on doing that, even though if they feel like they might not have done something perfectly, that ability of seeing and feeling the restoration immediately occurring in something that would have created a breakdown in the past. This is the energy that feels that amplification of restoration that almost says to one another, we're prioritizing healing. Right? Well, for a lot of that energy that may have moved into separation yesterday, that ability of saying, I think we want different things. I think we prioritize different things. I think you're not willing to let go of something required in order to maintain an energetic connection. We see even now that for a lot of that energy doing so, it's difficult. It's heavy. But it's also amplifying to a certain extent what feels energetically restorative, specifically and particularly because I'm identifying even now that for so much of that energy, doing so, truly doing so, is almost that energy that says, I want to make sure that we're moving in the same direction. And I don't want to be in that space of holding, like, feeling like I'm pulling you in a direction that you don't want to go into. And that's why I see that a lot of that energy moving into separation, it may be emotionally overwhelming right now, but sometimes feeling an emotional overwhelm doesn't mean that you're doing the wrong thing. It's the emotional overwhelm of feeling that sense of knowing that you're doing the right thing. Continuing to get clarification. And that brings us to a lot of the energy in separation right now that may be articulating upon what those energetic limitations were in the past. And again, if this is a lot of that energy saying, everything I did, I felt like I couldn't move something forward. Everything I did, it felt like I couldn't move something in the direction that I desired it to be. A lot of that energy is potentially encountering new energetic connections right now saying, well, did they want to move in that direction with you? Because it sounds to me like you're articulating something where you guys wanted different things. And that sometimes closure occurs in the moment that you recognize that the reason something was energetically difficult was because you wanted different things. And I see that some of that release or that relief that's occurring right now, it feels like a sigh of relief, because when you recognize that, it's that sense or space of identifying what you feel is within your power to change versus what was in your power to accept. Continuing to get clarification between our Justice card in its reversal in combination with our Queen of Cups in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now. Wow, we've got a lot of new energy here. This is a lot of new energy right now. This is like breaking new ground, breaking new ground. 3 of Pentacles in its reversal. We've got here Hierophant in its reversal. We've got here with the Three of Pentacles in its reversal, with the Ten of Swords in its reversal. So a lot of this energy, new approaches, new perspectives. For the energy in separation, the closure is occurring by having a new perspective on the past. Something is occurring right now for a lot of the energy in separation. Simply the closure that's occurring in having a new perspective on the past that is allowing for this new energy of like, this is like the new. This is like all of this new ground that's effectively occurring. Anything is effectively possible here. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union, looking at something and saying, we did something in a different way. It didn't have the same result that we expected. We obviously are moving in the right direction because we've never had this point of success before. Like a lot of the energy is feeling some validation coming into divine union right now, either, and again, employing those new approaches, breaking out of cycles, having a lot of that new ground, because this is the energy that's prioritizing restoration, right? While for some of this energy, if this is energy that moved into separation yesterday, this is the energy that's basically articulating and saying to one another, I want to move with you, I want to move forward with you. But in order to do that, we have to want the same things. Right? And I can see even now a lot of those conversations this week in the difference between what feels like it's integral versus what feels like it's adaptable. And so a lot of that is like a lot of conversations that potentially were getting to the heart of an energetic problem. And it was that allowed for that sense or that space of being able to identify what can change. Continuing to get clarification between our Strength card in its reversal, our Queen of Swords in its reversal, and our Seven of Swords in its transverse. May I have one card to clarify, please? Clarification coming through right now with our Six of Cups in its upright. A lot of this work that we're seeing right now, it feels restorative. This is beautiful. It feels restorative. I just see that a lot of this energy right now, and this is I gotta say, for a lot of the energy right now in separation, very much in alignment with the energy deep within divine union, which is again recognizing the easement that occurs, moving with energy that's moving and desiring the same direction as you. I just see a lot of that energy in separation right now, having new energetic connections that are forming at this time. And that ability of recognizing something that's moving easily in a space that something felt like everything was a difficulty. You know, the hurdle, the thing that someone defined as a hurdle, that someone almost sees and says, there's no hurdle there at all. I don't know what you're talking about. That seems like a benefit. I just see that like a lot of that energy here is coming into those new energetic connections that feel restorative, and it's bittersweet, right? Because it's a recognition and it's a reclamation of strength to a certain extent. And it's a lot of that energy identifying and coming into alignment by someone taking something that another described as a weakness and another saying that is your greatest strength. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union. This is a lot of that energy that's feeling the restoration of prioritizing reconciliation. I just see a lot of this energy yesterday. There may have been a lot of conflict energy yesterday. But when we're focused on restoration, when we prioritize the energetic partnership above all, then that spends that sense or that space of building towards it. This is energy that is covetous about the energetic connection that they share with counterpart. They work very hard to maintain it. They do what it energetically takes to be able to affirm it. And even, again, facing their greatest fears, facing their greatest anxieties, doing so confidently. This is where we find a lot of the energy deep within divine union, because again, when we're building into the context of prioritizing the energetic connection, we can find gifts within ourselves that we did not know were possible. Continuing to get clarification between our Queen of Swords in its reversal, our Seven of Swords in its transverse, and our Three of Pentacles in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Page of Pentacles in its upright. So masculine and feminine energy right now in deep within divine union. This is again that sense or that space of when you're this is just more of that affirmation that when you prioritize an energetic connection, you find things within yourself that you don't know are possible. See that combination here? That's that ability of finding the parts of the self within that you didn't know were there because of the energetic connection. That is the beauty of the divine union connection. And for a lot of the energy coming into divine union right now, that ability of doing something in a way, finding those parts, not letting yourself get triggered, or identifying one's own trigger, protecting the counterpart from your own trigger, protecting the counterpart from your own abandonment wound, being conscientious of the connection. This is what's leading a lot of energy deeper into divine union. And if there was something that occurred yesterday wherein someone did not feel like they had that control over it, allow that sense or that amplification of the energetic trigger to rise up. A lot of those doubts and the fears informing, someone holding back, someone articulating that refusal, right? Or that difference between saying you're trying to change me in a way I don't desire to be changed. I see that a lot of that energy moved back into separation yesterday, but that's why I see a lot of that energy in separation, feeling that affirmation of saying that that gift that we give forward, like that ability of navigating, this is that Ace of Pentacles we saw a few days ago, that sense or that identification of, again, the treasure of ourselves. If we're not in that space in an energetic connection where the parts of ourselves are treasured, right, then it will always feel like we have to change who we are internally. So I see even now there's some of this energy in separation, articulating on something someone else considered a weakness, and someone else saying, that isn't your weakness. That sounds like your treasure. Now, why were they in that space of telling you that your treasure was not treasurable? Why were you in that space of someone coming into that identification? Because when we're not in alignment, the things that we treasure, another person will consider are not worthy of being energetically treasured, right? So we see even now like a lot of that energy reclaiming their self in separation by coming into alignment with energy that prioritizes what those energetic treasures are. Final card for today's spread between our Six of Cups in its upright and our Page of Pentacles in its upright. We've got here our Two of Wands in its upright. I love it. Communication and perspective. Communication and perspective. A lot of this energy, closure occurring from the past by new opportunities of communication, new perspectives, amplifications, easement, right? And a lot of that conversation I see that's generating right now in separation is creating a lot of closure on the past, and it feels positive. It feels restorative. It feels like anything is possible. But I bet you had to go through a lot of going through the mud yesterday in order to do it. You got to dig into the mud. The diamonds don't just live up on the surface. You got to dig into the mud to go find those diamonds. You got to go down into the muck, right? So a lot of that energy reaching into the mud yesterday, pulling out those diamonds, right? Doing a lot of that energetic unpacking. You got to be ready to get your hands dirty. That's why you got to heal those abandonment wounds, right? Because the abandonment wound says stay out of the muck, and the healing says get your hands dirty. Roll up your sleeves, right? Well, for masculine and feminine energy right now, coming into divine union, I see even now that this is a lot of that energy that, like, again, almost saying it's not perfect. Like, we're not doing something perfectly. Yesterday may have been very energetically rough, but that ability of immediately coming into resolution, that ability of being able to come into an act of restoration, even through a difficulty, that's because the energy says, what do they prioritize? Do they prioritize the ego? No. Do they prioritize the wounds of the self? No. This is the energy that says prioritizing the energetic connection pulls things out from within ourselves that we didn't know were possible. So a lot of that energy right now coming into that restorational space in identifying and recognizing that even now that ability of trying to build forward into a deeper energetic connection is bringing parts about themselves and saying, I never saw that before. I didn't recognize that. And some of that energy being referential, saying, I could have utilized this new tool better. And someone saying, like, again, your ability of articulating how you would have preferred to use a tool while employing it, This is someone saying, like, it's okay. You're always going to want to get better at something. But the fact that you're articulating, you're trying to put a modifier on how well you could do something, that in itself is the energy that's saying there's no trying, there's doing. You're just qualifying the ability to do so. That is something that always allows for improvement. While for a lot of this energy right now, and there was some energy in separation that potentially occurred that was coming into divine union yesterday, but this is the energy that's basically in that space of almost immediate healing by receiving and recognizing something yesterday that's giving them that sense of empowerment in relationality to feeling like they are doing what is best. While for masculine and feminine deep within divine union, when you prioritize an energetic connection above all, you find treasures within yourself that you did not know were possible. You find parts of yourself that you didn't imagine. And these are energies that see one another in that capacity, and they love each other all the more for doing so. And a lot of that is built and based upon the communication between the energetic connections, because this is a lot of that energy that says when there's a will, there's always a way. Bottom of the deck on today's reading today is our Two of Cups in its reversal. So this is having a lot of this energy right now. Oh, everything's about the unhealed connections. Everything's about the unhealed connections. We're going to get to it. It's going to have a different impact depending on where you are within the frequency cycles. For a lot of this energy, deep within divine union. Again, this is the energy that works towards that energetic purpose. And navigating forward in such a way, recognizing and identifying what that is. I see that a lot of the energy right now, deep within divine union, is navigating a lot of those difficulties or hurdles may be around energy that does not prioritize things in the same way as the energy within divine union. Right? And a lot of that work, it feels, I want to say, fundamental. And this is why I see a lot of that energy being very overly protective of one another in the process. Because if these are those modalities where, again, another, like, and a lot for the feminine, like the emotional burden falling upon the feminine of navigating other people's emotionality. We see even there, like there's a lot of that feminine feeling that frustration in being able to kind of be their most authentic self, but also having to like recognize the place that others desire for the feminine to occupy within the space of their own existence. Masculine having a lot of empathy for the feminine in that modality, because there's something about the way the masculine can navigate things that feels like it's not as much in alignment to the feminine experience. Bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. So a lot of that clarification in terms of others looking at something and feeling that sense of like difficulty or frustration, and having to say to someone, yeah, it's very easy. All it takes is everything, right? Like that's that clarification for a lot of the energy within divine union in relationality to what something looks like on the outside versus how something feels on the inside. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, this is energy. I see a lot of the energy coming into divine union going, I don't know what we're doing. Why is the energy saying I don't know what they're doing? Because they don't know what they're doing because they've never done it before. That's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Taking a new approach, being like, I don't know what we're doing, but it's working. Like a lot of that energy. Having that moment of feeling touch and go to a certain extent, because this is the energy that's working on how to heal the energetic connection. You know, it's like how to heal the energetic connection. This is the energy that's going, all it takes is everything, because this is the energy that's trying different approaches. They're being adaptable, and it feels to them, they're like, I don't really know what I'm doing, because when you're learning how to do something, it never feels like you know what you're doing because you don't know how to do it. While for masculine and feminine in separation, this is bittersweet. I see a lot of energy that's looking at something right now and making new energetic connections. In the process of making them or receiving some kind of insight, they hear the door closing. They go, I can never go back. And the reason they're saying I can never go back is they go, I'm not that person anymore. Right? There's some of this energy right now that's feeling like that. I see that a lot of that energy is mourning something as they move to new energetic connections, because they're looking back at the past version of self. And they're saying, I can't go back to that because I'm no longer that person that would accept it. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber name at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading with me, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. Also, a couple of updates before we move into personal readings for today. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who attended my recent class on the Lover's Card. Our next class will be on November 13th. At 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. Eastern, we will be continuing our studies into the tarot with a focus on the Chariot card. If you would like to become a part of our live class program, all you need to do is head over to my Substack, graystrega.substack.com. Your paid subscription to my Substack is your ticket of entry into our live classes each month. You'll also have access to the full repository of all of our previous classes so far. That's over 7 hours of material at your disposal to review when you are ready. It's not necessary to catch up for each class. I'll be giving a recap on what we've studied thus far in each and every class. You'll also have access to a one-on-one chat with me and the other students to ask any questions that you may have in relation to anything that we've learned thus far. And if you become a founding member to my Substack, not only will you receive a discount on the full year's worth of classes, but you will also receive a complimentary mentorship class with me, wherein we will assess where you are on your own personal tarot journey, and I'll give you the best insights in terms of how to utilize the classes and your own personal practice to the best of your advantage going forward. One of the things I tried to do in these classes was make them accessible to the absolute novice tarot reader as well as the seasoned reader. There's definitely something there for everyone. So I want to thank you if you've already taken that class, if you're already joining us on those classes, and I look forward to potentially seeing you at our next class. And if you are a subscriber here on my Substack, head over to my Discord. You'll find a special coupon code for those who are now joining that will give you an additional discount on that Substack subscription. Even if you don't become a paid subscriber to my Substack, I would encourage you to follow me there to stay up to date on any new offerings and services. I post each day's daily collective there as a podcast along with the spread photo if you'd like to see the full spread. You'll also be notified as to our giveaways. Speaking of giveaways, we have just announced the winner to our October giveaway over on Substack. Congratulations to our winner. We are now actively having our November giveaway. If you would like to win a free private tarot reading with me, head over to the link tree in my bio. There's a 2-minute travel survey there. Filling out that travel survey will grant you an entry into the giveaway, but if you'd like to increase your chances of winning, go ahead and forward that survey to a friend, because when I pull the winner, I'll be gifting a reading not only to the person that wins, but also to the person that referred them. So thank you if you've already entered, and I wish you the best of luck of winning this month. Finally, I want to let you know, on top of my standard my life path readings, I also offer mentorship classes. These are for those students that are interested in having a more personalized educational experience with me. I take a very limited number of students for this reason, because these are classes that are customized to each individual's preferences of personal growth or spiritual development. Those can be purchased on an individual level or as a monthly class series, 4 45-minute classes, weekly or bi-weekly, as your schedule permits. Also, for my clients that are seeking more consistent weekly tarot support, I'm very happy to offer weekly tarot insight packages. That is a package of 4 30-minute readings, weekly or bi-weekly, as your schedule permits, so that you can stay more consistent on your personal journey. I want to thank you guys so much for being here today and sharing in these messages, and we will do this again tomorrow.